Is Jichopevu a Ruto more deep in the opposition? In fact, now in the Rigathi Gachagua camp? Is he? Folks, I believe that is a very important question that we need to interrogate and answer as best as we can, because this is important. In fact, it is more than important. Why? Because as we have established in previous videos, this is one strategy and tactic of President William Samoei Ruto that is just devastating. In the past, it has made the difference between winning and losing an election. It is important. Fortunately, there are enough clues and bits of evidence that have been left behind all over the place that are enough for us to answer that question. Is Moha a mole of Ruto in the opposition? There are enough clues and evidence to answer that question. And with a high degree of certainty, is 70% good enough for you? Well, I think that's pretty good. And assuming that Muhammad Ali is not a mole, the reason why he has made this very latest move of his will shock you to your bones. You will not believe. It is not what you're thinking. It is not what you can possibly think. Hey! By the way, I hope you caught my earlier videos. Very revealing, very thorough on this defection of the decade. If you haven't, I highly recommend that you do. But for now, karibu sana to my show. Twende kazi. Actually, there are very many Kenyans who believe that we're wasting our time asking this question, that indeed the answer is obvious, that indeed Muhammad Ali is definitely a mole for Ruto in the opposition, to get information back to Ruto on one of the biggest enemies of this regime. Somebody who has done a lot of damage to this regime. But rather than make sweeping conclusions or emotional ones, because maybe you don't like the man after what has happened before, it is much better for us to go a little deeper and get to the truth, because it is easier to get to the truth than most of us may think. Although it is also true that sometimes it may not be very easy to find a mole. Yeah, that's why they're called moles. By the way, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there are enough analysts who still believe that Rigathi Gachagua is working with Ruto. Kenyans are being tricked. At the last minute, the two will come together and the long-suffering people of Kenya will lose yet again. There are those who believe that it is a constitutional right for somebody to believe what they want to believe. However, don't you think it is very good to use just simple logic on many of these things? Even if you don't have the information, even if you don't understand politics very much, don't you think simple logic will suffice in very, very many instances? For example, do you think that it is possible that somebody who has done so much damage to another person can actually qualify to be that person's mole? Do you think that can happen? Yani, me as Kumekucha Chris sends you out somewhere to do something for me, to stage manage something to fool the public. But then what you're doing damages me terribly. Does that make sense to you? Because as things stand, the biggest obstacle to the Ruto regime at the moment, the biggest thorn in the flesh, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle this man, is Rigathi Gachagua. And therefore, I think you'll agree with me, we can completely rule out any imagination, any theory, any far-fetched dream that Rigathi Gachagua is working for Ruto. That one, apana, there is nothing like that. You see, also using logic, human nature has never changed right down history. And we humans are ruled by emotions. Those who can control those emotions get ahead because they make quality decisions. However, I've used the word control. Control does not mean human emotions have gone away. No. It just means they've been controlled. They've been tamed temporarily. For example, what former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta did to Ruto, and then what Ruto did to former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, what kind of emotions do you think that caused on both parties? Do you think those two people can never work together? Of course, in politics, anything is possible. But in this instance, it is highly unlikely. Okay? Anyway, let's stay on point. Muhammad Ali, the Nyali legislator. There are a number of things that we can look at that tell us that it is highly unlikely that this time round he is a mole for Ruto. I think the one which stands out most is how this politician has behaved right from day one. You know, it is a fact of this life that very many men, is not a good thing to do, but still it is very common amongst many men. When they seduce a woman, the impression they give, what they tell the beautiful, gorgeous lass, compared to what happens when he has safely married her. The woman is inside his house. Maybe she's even pregnant. Those two are very different. Of course, a lot of sweet words are used, a lot of lies, a lot of twisting of the truth. Because the whole idea is to get this woman into your house. And then after she's in your house, surely utajipanga. Surely you will be able to control her. That is life. Now it is very clear that from the very minute Muhammad Ali stepped into UDA and Ruto's camp, hajawahi kuingia laini. He has struggled to fit in. Isn't that true? You know, we're all different. Our characters are different. There are some people whose conscience cannot allow some certain things to happen. But there are some other people who love money so much that when they've been lied to, they are in a box. And then when they get there and they realize that things are not what they expected. Yeah, we can even go to my earlier example of a woman. She realizes that this man is a con man. He did not tell her the truth. But hey, there's a lot of money. This man has money. So she settles in and enjoys the money. and blows the money and forgets about her principles, her dreams, her purpose. There are people like that. And then there are people whose conscience cannot allow them to do certain things. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to praise somebody. I'm not trying to build somebody's profile. I'm not trying to make any excuses for anybody. But let us also agree that sometimes some of us can be very naive about politics. Politics is one thing many people are very naive about. They get it wrong. They don't understand. And therefore it is very easy for a sweet-talking, smooth politician to come along and convince them of 1, 2, 3, na wanaingia kwa box haraka sana, and they totally believe that person, only to discover later it is not what they thought. There are plenty of reasons for me to believe that Muhammad Ali is this kind of person, because the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, huyu mtu alisumbua right from the word go. Alikuwa nasumbua, hakuingia laini. But I'm assuming as a second term member of parliament, he has learned a lot of things. He has matured. He is not the same person who Ruto picked from the media and put into politics. But now let us move into the biggest thing that will help you know what a politician is thinking. Do you know what it is? It is definitely not what they are saying. In fact, most of the time, I completely ignore what politicians are saying. When I'm trying to assess what they're all about, I completely ignore what they're saying, or at least most of what they're saying. And I focus very sharply on, wait for this one, what they are doing. You see, even in life, what a person tells you and what they are doing, which one are you going to use to judge their character? Of course, what they are doing. And remember, Muhammad Ali was re-elected by the electorate at Nyali constituency for a second term. And this time round, he won by a much bigger margin. I believe he got a whopping 10,000 votes more. Now what that tells me is that there's something this politician was doing which the constituents liked. He actually must have done something that the people liked, something that made him popular on the ground. Because remember, the UDA party was not strong in Mombasa. It wasn't. And remember, this is very important, Nyali is a very cosmopolitan constituency. Okay? And so the sentiments in 2022 were very much pro the opposition, pro Raila Odinga, pro Azimio. But here is a UDA politician who had absolutely no problem getting re-elected. That should tell you something. Now what all this tells us is that it is highly unlikely that this man is a Moor. And therefore we must quickly move on to the next question. A very important question which will give you a very shocking answer. Why did this politician embrace Rigathi Gachagua and Kalonzo Musyoka? Why? And even more important, why now? Okay? Now I am persuaded that the reason for that was that Muhammad Ali was feeling threatened. You see, he has been throwing barbs at the UDA High Command for a long time now. He didn't start yesterday. And we already know that plans were at a very advanced stage to get rid of him, to get another UDA candidate for Nyali constituency, to push him aside. We already know that. Now, politics is a very dirty game. Anything can happen. People can wake up one morning and decide to get rid of you completely and permanently. I'm sure you know what I mean. Now, by moving into the open by moving into the Rigathi Gachagua camp. Do you know what that changes? Actually, it changes something very significantly. It protects the politician. Why? Because if anything happens to him now, God forbid, where will the fingers point? They'll point directly at UDA. They'll point directly at politicians within the ruling party. And even worse, it will score points for Rigathi Gachagua, which UDA does not want. They do not want a situation where they're scoring any points for Rigathi Gachagua. And therefore, as a result of this single move, things have changed so much that now it is even in the best interest of UDA and the ruling party that Moha, nothing happens to him, he remains safe and sound. I hope you get what I'm driving at. Ay, 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 ay. Hey! Bottom line, this latest move by the Nyali politician was a move to protect himself from harm. Please allow me to leave it there for now. Have you checked out my very latest highly sensitive special report? If not, I highly recommend that you do. Incidentally, it is very closely linked to what we have been discussing here on my show today. You can see details on your screens right now. For only Kenya shillings 3,999, you can get this red hot special report. But even better, you can go for my golden key, which will not only give you this particular special report, but everything Kumekucha, even non-political material. Yeah, we have plenty of that on this channel. And again, you can see details on your screens right now. For only Kenya shillings 6,444, you will permanently be able to get everything Kumekucha at no cost. Yeah, because every time an offer comes up, every time there's some sensitive information, you have the golden key to it. Past, present, and future. Please, if you're in a position, make haste to go for it, because the truth is, this is shutting down at any time. Okay? Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.